Pardon me while I have a strange interlude.
There is nothing else. Life is an obscure hobo bumming a ride on the omnibus of art.
Along the misty corridors of time, and in those corridors I see figures, strange figures.
Welcome back to the AP Strange Show. This week's show is brought to you by
the Coalition for the Furtherance of Ado.
Are you tired of everybody saying without further ado all the time and stopping ado from happening? Well, you're not alone. The Coalition for the Furtherance of Ado wants ado to run freely throughout the world. So give them your support. They're our sponsor for tonight. So now that we have our imaginary sponsor out of the way, without further ado, I can introduce our guest tonight. He is an artist, a designer, a writer, Fortean, an inspiration to many out there in the Fortean realms, frequent guest co-host on many programs that you know and love, the one and only Red Pill Junkie. Welcome to the show, Red Pill.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So I got some tech difficulties happening as soon as I started talking. It was weird, but yeah. I think it's rectified now.
I noticed them. Yeah.
See, that's because they want to stop the ado from happening and they don't want to hear anything about it. So, my imaginary sponsors will be angry with me if that doesn't come through well. All right, so how are you doing tonight, Red Pill?
I'm doing fairly well, like hanging in there, like waiting very nervously for the November 5th election, because even though it is an American election, it is something that should concern pretty much every rational being in the world.
Yeah, I agree.
There's so much hanging from that. From that happening. I mean, if it goes in a certain direction, I will be extremely disappointed in the American people. Like saying, my God, you're choosing that again?
Yeah. I mean, this should be fun because this is going to be released after the election has happened. So this will be retrospect at this point. But yeah, I mean, I just keep coming back to that because I look at it and I say, like, he had better not win. Like, honestly, really, like, he had better not, because just watching him sway on stage for a half an hour, just deciding he was done talking, and he's like, well, just listen to music and sway. And people are okay with that.
Yeah, people are okay with it. I mean, the first time it was obvious that people were okay with him despite his misconduct, his felonies, all the people pointing fingers at him for many various reasons. So his moral conduct was something that even the people who claim to be devout Christians were apparently okay with. And now it seems that they are okay with him despite the fact that he seems to be losing cognitive abilities very rapidly. Like now it's not only a matter of, okay, he's a liar, but he has charisma and he's intelligent. No, none of that matters anymore. Like saying, okay, yeah, he's a bumbling idiot, but he is our boy because we cannot go with the other camp, and And in the other camp, like I see, like at first I thought, okay, this should be a pretty easy win for the other side, but no, because they keep in making all these mistakes, like saying, I mean, this is turning very political, but it's important for me. The idea that Israel has such a major role in this election, like, would it be so terrible just to go on stage and saying these idiots should stop killing women and children on camps, and we should stop supporting them? Like, we should take away their little, like, free from jail, card, after they gave them the card from since World War II, right? Saying, okay, you need to show restraint and try to figure this out without returning to this violence that is it is totally out of control. And after that, there's the thing with Russia and Ukraine. I mean, how many years has it been since that thing started? I mean, 3 years, I want to say.
Yeah.
Before the pandemic, maybe, I don't know. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is that the world has turned so complicated, so many fires, sometimes literal fires burning at the same time. And in the midst of it, there are still people who think that UFOs are like the most important topic in the world. Like, okay, but disclosure, it's like, okay, it's kind of endearing to think that there are people who really believe that. Maybe I would be that person, like, if I was still in my 20s. I mean, when I was in my 20s, I was listening to things about Bob Lazar and say, fuck yeah,
Right, yeah.
Right on, like Area 51, and they keep the saucers there, and they're gonna tell us. I mean, and now I'm 51 years old, and they're still talking about Bob Lazar and thinking that it will amount to something aside from, a movie deal or a podcast appearance.
Yeah, I mean, this stuff always has a way of coming back around. Like, it doesn't. God. People can fall out of favor. All they have to do is lay low for a few years, and then there's a new wave of people that are ready to just embrace them.
The field is so filled with like vampires. Like, no matter how many times you drive the stake through a known hoax, it keeps rising from the grave. Also, Roswell.
Right. Yeah.
No, not again.
Well, that was one thing I was definitely going to ask you about, because I think last year was probably the first introduction for a lot of the, I don't necessarily want to say younger, but younger to the topic UFO people, to Jaime Maussan. And when they saw those little alien mummies, they lost their mind. And there's a whole lot of us that are like, yeah, we know Jaime, we know who he is.
Oh yeah. I mean, one of the reasons I'm talking to you right now tonight is because of him. I mean, whether I like to admit it or not, like in the 1990s, man, he was my hero. I have to admit it. I have to confess it. I have to take it, I mean, out of my chest. I was one of those young, passionate, oh so naive people who listened to him whenever he was invited to late night TV shows to present the latest batch of blurry UFO videos. Because there were so many Mexicans were buying video cameras, and they were spending all of their time just sitting on the rooftops, on their terraces, waiting for something to happen, right? And I gotta admit that probably 90% of those videos obviously were crap. I still have to admit that a significant percentage of those videos are probably still worth studying, because Maussan became the repository from all those people who saw something weird in the sky they couldn't explain, and the authorities were like, "Nah, I mean, hey, did it kill you? Did it shoot you? Was it carrying drugs? Nah," and then don't bother with it. Don't bother us with it. And the scientists were like, "Nah, we're too busy with important stuff to be looking at the UFO nonsense." So Maussan was the go-to guy, you know. And in the 90s, another thing that happened in Mexico was we did have a very active UFO flap that started in 1991 coincided with the eclipse, the eclipse that happened in July 11, 1991. I was just finishing high school when that happened, and I wasn't even in the city. And then when I returned, I was seeing all these news about the UFO over the city. It was like, motherfucker, I missed it because I was in another state. Because I was afraid. Back in those days, they were saying that maybe the eclipse wouldn't be visible over the city because of the weather. You know, it would be overcast or whatever. So I decided to go to a place that it will be assured that it will be totally clear skies, and it was. I mean, it was one of the most incredible experiences of my life. You know, seeing a total annular eclipse. It is something that somebody should see that at least once in your life. But then all this happened, and then that's when Maussan became the household name, right? Because he was, like I said, invited to all these TV shows to present this information and to do battle with the skeptics, right?
Yeah, right.
And I remember, you know, that most of these shows had a live audience, and Maussan had a significant crowd of fans, of young supporters. And every time the skeptic would say, "Well, that's obviously just the planet Venus," or something like that. There was it was almost like their own Fortean version of lucha libre, right?
Yeah.
And Maussan was like the guy with like El Santo, like saying, you know, and the skeptics were on the other side of the ring, and people will cheer and they will clap and they will boo and they will rage whenever something happened. And it was fun. I have to admit it. It was really, really fun to witness all that stuff. And then obviously, as the years progress, you become a little bit disenchanted with it, and instead say, well, okay, Jaime has been telling us that these entities are ready for contact, and that's why they are more visible, more than ever. So, okay, I'm ready. We're all ready. When is it going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And years pass, and then you have to go get a job, and you start to, worry about other stuff. And nothing happens, right? And then you begin to analyze the things that Maussan was saying and the evidence he was presenting, and you start to see the kinks and say, wait a minute, all this Billy Mayer stuff, it really looks kind of shady. I'm like, oh my God, all these photos are fake. What was I thinking?
Yeah. They are cool looking, though.
Oh my God, yes, they're beautiful. They have these very interesting quality that is almost like a juxtaposition of stuff. Because on the one hand, it is the bucolic, beautiful Swiss Alps scenario with all these green mountains and stuff, and then you have these. I mean, they are gorgeous looking, shiny metallic discs, right on top of them, really close, very discernible. And there's something that in that contrast that really speaks to you. Like it's something that is not seen certainly in other photographs, even the ones that are alleged to be real. Like for example, what's the one, the McMinnville, yes, the Trent.
Yeah.
I still think those are genuine. I mean, even the Condon report say, well, this seems to be a real object, right? But it is black and white. The object is too far off. The weather was overcast, so you see kind of foggy. It is enigmatic, but it's not like right there, like the Meyer stuff. The Meyer stuff really, obviously, if you start seeing it with a new set of eyes, more skeptical, you see it. You literally see the strings,
Yeah.
from the object. But when you are young and impressionable, and I was in the 80s, I was a kid. I was 10 years old when I first watched this documentary that was produced by Maussan. Maussan was a producer in the Mexican version of 60 Minutes, right? So he created this, like 1 hour show entirely devoted on the Meyer stuff. And my God, to me, it was a revelation. I mean, it's the thing that really captured my imagination. And from then on, I've never managed to get rid of my UFO obsession.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, like as you said, those pictures compositionally are phenomenal, And then Meyer himself is kind of a problematic figure.
Yeah, but he also had this quality, right? Because on the one hand, he sells himself as this plain, salt of the earth farmer, and on top of that, he doesn't have one arm, so he says, well,
right.
I mean, how could he fake those things? He with his handicap. Then he also began to grow his beard longer and longer and longer.
Right.
That makes him look like some kind of like modern version of a biblical prophet, right? Because he was a prophet. I mean, that was the whole point. It was like he was this new prophet of the Pleiadian gods, right?
Yeah.
And
I fear that by talking about him, we're going to invoke the wrath of Michael Horn.
Oh yeah,
they come after us.
yeah. I mean, is he still around? Is he still devoted to his
shtick? I don't know, but as recently as a few years ago, it was, if you brought up Billy Meyer on Twitter, he would appear and start challenging you to a debate.
Well,
yeah.
Let me tell you something about the Meyer stuff that I still find interesting. How he, aside from the fact that his experiences allegedly started since he was a child, right? He apparently he first saw his first UFO when he was, I don't know, 5 or 6 years old, and his father told him that it was probably one of the Adolf Hitler's like wonder weapons, right?
Yeah.
And then he began to have these psychic contact with this entity from apparently another, like a parallel universe. That was interesting from his perspective. Like he was probably some kind of psychic or something, and then he travels to India, and that's when he loses his arm. But the stuff about the Pleiadian stuff, one of the things that always intrigued me is the fact that he chose to call the main alien contact, the woman, Semyase, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like, isn't it interesting that the name is almost like the name of the leader of the fallen angels in the book of Enoch, Samyasa, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So Samyasa was the one who taught humans once, he he and his comrades came down onto Earth because they wanted to lay with the daughters of men, right? And that's the whole stuff with the Nephilim and all that stuff. But Samyasa is supposed to be the one who taught humans magic and incantations. So it's always like, why did he choose to call the woman like a fallen angel, and also the one that taught humans the arts of magic? Like, what was going through his head making that decision?
Well, one wonders if it was a conscious decision.
Right.
You know, because sometimes I think when people talk about hoaxes, the assumption is that there was some kind of machination going on in the mind to concoct this brilliant plan. But I think a lot of it just happens subconsciously, you know, and
Yes.
it's kind of surrealism in action,
Mhm.
which paradoxically probably provokes the phenomena.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. It's like the Patterson Gimli Bigfoot video recording or camera recording, right?
Yeah.
And all the skeptics love to point out how Roger Patterson was kind of a shady character. He had a history of like, it wasn't like he wasn't like a outstanding citizen, you know. Same thing with the Shack Harbor incident that many people painted as a hoax, and it probably was, but nevertheless, the people involved were so interesting. And then we have Billy Meyer also. It's almost like you said, right, that the phenomenon goes and chooses the people who are going to be the least credible,
Right.
in order to like manifest or to change the culture from the bottom up, right? Like the least disruptive way to change the culture will be through all these manifestations that the 90% of the population will call hoaxes, but nevertheless, they serve the purpose of slowly but surely changing the culture. Like, probably 90% of people don't believe in alien abductions, but everybody knows the alien probe meme. They understand what that means, where it comes from. So I don't know. It's something that I realized after many years, that hoaxes do have a role to play in all of these, whether we like it or not. And this is something that obviously drives the researchers nuts. They don't get it, because they want to prove once and for all that all this stuff is real, and they are searching for the one silver bullet, the one case that is going to like prove to the skeptics and the naysayers and the Neil deGrasse Tysons and the Mick Wests, see, this case is flawless. And then Mick West shave, well, see that guy, he left his wife, or he defrauded the bank or something, and they start to pull the strings, and it's almost by design, is what I'm trying to say.
It's almost absurd by design, you mean?
Absurd by design, exactly.
Yeah, no, I absolutely think that's true. It's one of the indicators to me whether I'm talking to somebody that sees things the way I do or not, where because I will get that question, isn't that a hoax though? I'll bring up a case. Wasn't that just a hoax?
Mm-hmm.
Or like, or if they're like really vehement about it, like, I don't want to talk about that hoax crap, then I know that we're never really going to get along.
Right.
I try to gently push people towards this idea that a lot of this is from the idea space anyway. We're talking about trends and currents in the popular mindset that help shape these things, like you said, and it happens from the fringes, from the margins, and it kind of gets between the lines of whatever the current zeitgeist is.
Mm-hmm.
So it is really interesting to see that interplay, and I think especially how it informs art, which then kind of informs popular opinion, and to see these things evolve, and that's kind of the main through line of everything I try to look at when I look at stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, to your point, like the Adamski saucers, George Adamski's photos, they're still some of my favorite flying saucers. And
Right.
like I don't care if it's part of a Coleman lantern.
Mm-hmm.
They look cool. I like the way it looks, you
And
know.
then the problem is that there were people reporting the same objects, all over the
Right.
world, and say, okay, are all those people lying? And there's even one video, well, one film that have always intrigued me, in which you see the object, the typical Adamski saucer, but you see it's starting to like shape and distort in a
Yeah.
way that say, that is not a small model like hanging from a string. There's something more going on there,
Right.
and then you start to entertain ideas about I don't know, thought projections, tulpas, the
Mhm.
co-creation, and all that stuff, and saying, well, yeah, maybe someone is trying to get our attention, uh, and the only way they can commune with us is in this shape, because it's the shape we have devoted the most energy into, right?
Right.
And it's kind of weird, like, okay, and on the same hand, you say, well, okay, why haven't people reported UFOs in the sky shaped like a rubber duck or
Yeah.
something totally ludicrous? It's always like, okay, oh, the saucer, or the cigar shape, or the triangle. The triangle became really big after the 1980s, and now I guess people are trying to talk about the tic tacs. Even though I
Mhm.
really don't see, I really still don't see that trend going on. But and sometimes even from Brazil, I was fascinated by the reports of the chupa chupas. The small objects that were like hurting people, like shooting beams of energy down to them,
Oh wow.
and they were shaped, or reported to be shaped, like washing machines, you know,
Wow.
or refrigerators,
Yeah.
so it's interesting, but at the same time, I don't see people reporting, oh yeah, it was like a flying tree, like a flying tree with roots hanging out or whatever. So there still has to be a certain logic within the absurdity that we
Yeah.
still haven't figured out.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right, but I also think that there is a level of weird that will never get reported. You
Yes,
know.
that is quite true. That is quite true.
'Cause-
There's probably people
'cause-
saw something really weird. I remember reading in a book by Spanish investigator Juan José Benítez, who is one of my heroes. Uh, he once received a report from a member of the Civil Guard, La Guardia Civil, the Spanish police.
Yeah.
And he shared with him this encounter he had of these UFO, typical saucer-shaped object, that at one point morphed into a truck, you know, almost like a semi truck or something, and then once again morphed into a UFO, and then finally morphed into a car
Yeah.
with people, with drivers and passengers, and the police officers even talked to the passengers and to the people inside the car, and it's so obviously so ludicrous. I mean, people make fun of Linda Moulton Howe when she suggested that the black helicopters flying over fields where cattle mutilations happened were actually UFOs in disguise. I remember Chris O'Brien laughing about that idea. And yeah, it's ludicrous, but at the same time, we should entertain the idea that maybe those objects can change shape. You know,
I think John Keel had suggested that at one point as well, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, there's also been suggestions that they can kind of camouflage with clouds.
Right. Yeah. It's like the movie Nope,
right?
Which is amazing. I mean, the idea that the object is camouflaging as a cloud during the night because it is a nocturnal predator, and then they only realize, oh, that cloud has not moved all day.
Right. Yeah.
But people don't do that. They don't stare at a cloud, you know, for 8 hours or 6 hours. You know, that's
right.
So it's
especially nowadays.
Especially nowadays, yeah. Nowadays, we are looking into our phones most of our time. We have our gaze pointed downwards. Yeah. No one is looking up in the sky.
Yeah.
So maybe the phenomenon will have to change once again in order to get our attention.
Yeah, I mean, I have to think it's always changing and always staying one step ahead. I think we may be at an inflection point where there's going to have to be a new agreed upon form, but it almost seems like nobody can agree on anything these days.
I mean,
so
what's disappointing is the skeptic argument. Oh, nowhere in our history have there been so many people carrying cameras all the time. So how come we only get photos or videos of UFOs that are just, you know, blurry lights in the sky? And I hate to admit it, but, you know, they have a point. I mean, it is fascinating to see how the good quality photos of UFOs, and good quality is subjective in this field, but you had better quality photos of UFOs in the 1960s and in the 1970s than in 2024.
Well, I think there's something to be said for the quality of film, though, versus a digital.
That is true. That is absolutely true. Like people say, oh, you know, my iPhone has like, I don't know, 12 megabytes and all these things. How come you don't manage to shoot a clear UFO photo? And say, well, okay, go grab your shiny cell phone and try to get a good photo of the full moon, right?
Right.
Only
comes out like crap. Yeah.
But 90% of the time is absolute crap on it, or if you manage to get it, you know, it's a tiny dot with, you know, barely discernible features. So there's that. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I don't know. It's also the idea that I don't see many people reporting landings nowadays. Like
yeah, that seems to have kind of fallen by the wayside.
Yeah, like the UFOs are staying airborne all the time. It's a drag.
Or under the water.
Or maybe. Under the water, yeah. I guess now it's the trend, the idea of the USOs. Like, okay, yeah, sure. I saw The Abyss with James Cameron. I was really passionate about that idea. Why not? But still, you know, there
Well,
used to be. Mhm.
that always made more sense to me than they came from outer space.
Sure.
And I think that kept me away from the UFO subject, in large part because the term UFO always seemed to de facto mean outer space vehicle coming into Earth
Hmm.
to the average person. And I would always, I mean, even when I was younger, think, well, why is that? Why is that the first option? It seems like the least likely one to me. Like the nearest place they could be coming from is really far away, you know. So
I guess it's an aspect of our pride and arrogance because we see ourselves as the pinnacle of, evolution in this planet.
mhm.
So say, okay, so if there's something that is more advanced than us, then it's got to be from elsewhere, right? Because we are it.
Yeah,
We're the top dog in this neighborhood, so they have to come from
right.
another neighborhood, right? So
Yeah.
maybe that's not the case.
I just
Yeah.
find it kind of irksome when that comes up now and you have academics putting together a paper talking about crypto-terrestrials, and you're
Yes.
like, oh, you just thought of that, did you?
Right. Yeah. Do you know the name Mac Tonys? Yeah. Who? Dr. Tonys from the University of Wyoming? No.
Yeah.
No. I mean, it's that thing, right? It's I'm noticing that the thing that is happening with the UFO field is not that dissimilar to what happened to the psychedelic movement like 10 years ago when psychedelics started to become less of a, kind of
Less taboo.
a taboo subject and say, oh, well, just that deadheads and losers do
Right.
drugs, right? And I said, well, no, actually, there's all these people, successful people to do drugs, and also all these things that can happen if you consume them, under the right set and setting, right? And the word of the guy who wrote DMT, the Spirit Molecule, Dr. Rick Strassman, and
Yeah.
then the guys, this organization MAPS, who have been at the forefront of trying to legitimize drugs, and then Michael Pollan. So then, before you know it, this event, Burning Man, it came from an underground thing that had just people from the periphery of culture going there and having a really cultural movement. It became like a social gathering for the ultra rich and the Silicon Valley tycoons because they wanted
Right.
to do drugs. And then all this money began to pour into the psychedelic stuff. All these startups that are trying to get FDA approvals and starting to try to legalize. Miss McKenna also trying to get this treatment center in Central America and all this stuff. And then all these psychedelic tourists going to Brazil and Peru, and then you have all these shamans that are charging like, I don't know, $5,000 for this ayahuasca retreat, whatever, and then the thing starts to dilute and become a consumerist stuff and saying, okay, these people are trying to sell psychedelics as a way to increase productivity and creativity, when the purpose of psychedelics is to realize how all of that is bullshit.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
To idea that to realize that all that is a rat race and you should forget about it. I feel that something similar is happening with the UFO stuff, that
Mhm.
people are starting to try to get into positions in order to capitalize on the UFO stuff, even though it is still an unknown. It is still an enigma, a scientific enigma, a social enigma, a cultural enigma. But you see all these foundations and organizations and academicians that are trying uh, to legitimize the UFO stuff in the academic field. And obviously, on the one hand, that is a plus, right?
Mm.
That it is no longer tabloid fodder for the skeptical inquirer or whatever. That Elvis came from a UFO and he took my baby, whatever. Yeah. But on the other hand, it feels kind of shady. The idea that, oh yeah, let's try to see how we can make money out of this. Like is something that I see especially in American culture, that the 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 counterculture, the underground, finds something very meaningful, changes lives of people for the better, like, I don't know, yoga, meditation,
Mm-hmm.
drugs. And then the mainstream gets noticed and say, oh, wait a minute, there's money to be made there, right? And then yoga, instead of being this millenarian ancient practice of spiritual improvement, it becomes a reason to sell hot pants to 40 something women who wants to look good when they go to their mall gym, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I feel that UFOs are going to go into that direction now that they are becoming more, quote unquote, mainstream, right?
I mean, I feel like they have in some ways, and speaking of yoga, you have the kind of whole conspirituality thing, where you saw that a lot with QAnon. There were a lot of people that started out just doing yoga and suddenly believing there were pedophiles behind every corner trying to abduct their children, and
well, and that's another kegger, or I don't remember how to say it in English. That aspect of how the UFOs then gets, if you're not careful and you fall into the deep rabbit hole, it becomes like a funnel for very toxic right-wing mindsets. That have always been there, I guess. Ever since the 1940s, and you have this guy, the leader of the silver shirts in the United States, and all these people. But I mean, even maybe you could say that Adamski, probably, some of his ideology.
Mm-hmm.
In this day and age, with our certain way of thinking, will probably say, wait a minute, this guy always was contacting blonde people,
Yeah.
So what's up with that? Not only that, but they have swastikas on their shoes.
Right. Yeah.
So it is a minefield. The UFO field is a minefield, and in order to retain your sanity, you have to, first of all, take everything with a major grain of salt. And the other powerful tool is you have to have a really good, healthy sense of humor.
Yeah,
you have to you have to be able to laugh of your own beliefs, right? Oh yeah, like Bigfoot.
Yeah.
This ape roaming in the forest and nobody can find him. He never drops dead. Like, he's the master of these guys. He's like the ninja of the forest. Right?
Yeah.
I remember Tim Binal saying something that really stuck with me. I found it hilarious, that maybe the only reason that Bigfoot comes into our dimension is to take a dump. Maybe
because we have scats.
West is like his toilet.
Yeah, well, it's as good a theory as any.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I think one of the biggest traps you can fall into with this stuff is taking it way too seriously.
Exactly.
And that way lies madness, I believe. That's the real madness,
Bitterness and madness. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because people have kind of lost their minds or their livelihood or their lives to that, just uh um the humor is very, very important to me. So I always try to keep a light touch on it. And I mean, maybe it's irresponsible sometimes because as you say, there always are dark influences trying to reach into it with the right wing influences, and there's always the conspiracy stuff that's attached to it,
Yeah.
and
But
which is
even with those things, the best weapon against them is humor, right? I mean, this is a recipe that we can learn from the cartoonists and the humorists from World War II. Like,
yeah,
these guys knew that the best thing they could do against someone like Adolf Hitler was to ridicule him and show how ridiculous he was, right?
yeah,
How stupid he looked with his stupid ass Chaplin mustache and his way of moving and so on. And that is the thing that Hitler hated the most. He couldn't, he wanted people to fear him. He didn't
yeah.
want people to laugh at him,
Well, Trump is the same way. Like
Exactly.
cannot
All
handle
those
being laughed
guys,
at. Yeah,
all those people are the same. So yeah, I mean, it's the good recipe, and maybe maybe and we have to remind ourselves that the phenomenon seems to have also a really interesting sense of humor at times.
yeah,
You know?
yes,
The trickster element, So it is almost like there seems to be an intelligence that seems to take a kick out of making fun of us, and part of me is glad of that. I mean, because a sense of humor is something that shows that at some point there can be a point of connection with the
yeah,
other, right?
mhm,
Imagine if the other was, I mean, people like Avi Loeb and all these people that are now taking an interest in UFOs, they love to equate the UFO phenomenon with artificial intelligence, right? And they say, well, obviously the only aliens we will find is robots or alien AI probes sent by a civilization that was probably, extinct thousands and thousands of years ago. Okay, that is kind of worrisome because that means the AI will be probably devoid of humor, right?
yeah, yeah,
If it has humor, then it means that it is something that we can relate to it at some point, even if we
mhm,
don't get the joke right now. But at some point we will. I mean, even with species like I don't know, gorillas or even dogs, right? I mean, the animals that we commune with the most closest, cats, dogs, pet owners know that their pets have a sense of humor,
yeah,
that they laugh and they get a kick up when someone makes something funny. Uh, that is the thing about being alive. And so if the phenomenon is also showing humor, that means that maybe one point we will be able to laugh with them, and go with the joke.
yeah. I mean, that's that's the most beautiful way I can think of communication happening. I think it's all a form of play. I
Right.
think play is very important.
Yeah. There is this, I think is part of a Gnostic gospel saying God the Father laughed and begat the Son. The Father and the Son laughed together and they begat the Holy Spirit. The three of them laughed in unison and they begat the whole of creation. So
Yeah,
so
yeah,
the universe is something of a cosmic joke if you think about it.
yeah.
I mean, I right now I'm in a good mood, and I prefer to see the universe as a joke instead of as a tragedy, right?
Yeah, right.
Just to try to retain my sanity.
Yeah, two sides of the same coin, I
Two
think.
sides of the same coin. Yeah, for sure. I mean, a joke is not appreciated if you are the butt of the joke, right?
Right. Yeah.
But
But
I don't know.
yeah. Yeah, no, I think that all makes perfect sense to me. I think if Chat GPT can write a joke that's actually funny,
Hmm.
or if it can laugh at a joke that I tell,
Right.
then maybe it'll achieve some level of actual consciousness, you know. But
Well,
I really reject calling any of these things AI because they don't seem like intelligence as I understand it.
right. I
Uh,
mean, we know. I mean, we were talking about that before you hit the record button. That
yeah.
if there is an intelligence behind these algorithms, is the intelligence of the person that is choosing to be fooled by them. You
Hmm.
know, it is something of a technological pareidolia. The
Yeah.
idea that, I mean, pareidolia is this psychological phenomenon in which you see faces in inanimate objects, and obviously it's not that the object is choosing to show a face like, oh, that looks like a like an angry man or whatever.
Hmm.
It's like your mind is tricking you into seeing those patterns because that is how we are uh, trained, or we are evolved to function in this reality, right? We are pattern recognition. I don't want to say machines. I want to say pattern recognition entities,
Yeah.
and I feel that with these algorithms, we are letting ourselves be fooled, and we're seeing these patterns into thinking, oh my God, this thing is going to be more intelligent than us, because it's some kind of like wishful thinking. It's
Hmm.
I feel it is stems from a sense of despair. Like feel, oh my God, we all realize we're in such a mess right now. Climate change, the political situation we were discussing earlier,
Hmm.
things are more complicated than ever. So it is probably the same reason that why some people became obsessed with the UFO phenomenon, because you want someone to save us from our own mistakes, right?
Oh yeah.
So in the 1950s, in the 1960s, the Space Brothers will come
Hmm.
and save us from the nuclear weapons, and they will bring us to this utopia and welcome us into the Galactic Federation or whatever. And now with the Techno Bros, is like, okay, just give us a couple of $1 trillion and give us all the water and all the energy, and you'll see, we'll get this thing to
Hmm.
be so intelligent that will be able to like rule over us like a benevolent overlord, and fix all the mess that we've been unable to solve for like the last 500 years. You know,
Yeah.
just wait and see. But it
Yeah.
is just wishful thinking. It is despair. No one is going to save us but ourselves. You know, that's
Yeah.
not the gods, not even the gods that we are trying to create.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what we're looking for, is the Deus Ex Machina to
Right.
just come and like
Mhm.
be a game changer for us all, and it's just not going to work that way.
No.
Um, and what blows my mind about the large language models and things that people are choosing to believe are artificial intelligence is that old computer programming adage, garbage in, garbage out.
Mhm.
So, I mean, if the data being fed to it is no good, then the results aren't going to be good. And you can wave broadly at the internet and see all the stuff people have put on it.
Mhm.
And I don't see any other way of defining that than garbage most of the time, you know? So uh,
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
not surprising.
I mean, I remember the first time that I logged into the internet when I was still in college, and there was no. We didn't even have still like a visual operating, like what do you call this, OX, like
Operating system.
no, not operating, like user interface, like
Oh, okay.
UI, right?
Right.
So it was all text based, and you logged in and into bulletin board systems, and all these forums, and you have to use Eudora to have email and all that.
Yeah.
And the best thing you could have in order to search the internet was things like web crawler and Alta Vista and all that stuff. And then Google came, and it was, oh my God,
Yeah.
it gives you the answer in less than a second. This is magic. And
I think Ask Jeeves is gonna make a comeback. That's what we need. It's Jeeves back.
I mean, yeah, compared to how horrible Google is, what I'm getting at is that there was a time when I thought, and maybe I still think, that the internet was the best invention humanity had ever come up with, right? That bigger than the printing press, bigger than the wheel. This was the thing that was going to create this unified global village in which information was going to be shared and distributed at the speed of light. And it was going to also help us topple tyrant regimes. Like, remember the Arab Spring in 2008?
Yeah.
Oh my God, these people are using Twitter in order to fight the system. Isn't that amazing? Like, what are the thing that Occupy Wall Street also? There was this hope, and then it became so nasty and jaded in so little time, and now it's something of a cesspool. It's like, once again, it is very polarized, it is very fragmented, and people with a certain mindset only visit certain websites and certain communities because they want to keep reinforcing that mindset, and they want to, they don't want those beliefs to be challenged, and lies spread way faster than facts and truths, and facts and truths are becoming not meaningless but irrelevant, even in something like an election, like like you have politicians that they are saying on camera, oh, I thought we agreed that you were not going to fact check me. It's like, excuse me, sir. Imagine if in the 1950s some politician would have said, hey, it's not fair that you are going to check what I'm saying, if what I'm saying is the truth. Like, what are you saying?
Yeah. I will say about that man in particular that he could have stood to have been bullied more, I think, in his life. Like, I know a lot of people are very anti-bully, but there's a time and a place for a bully. And man, I would love to slap the books out of that guy's hand. And give him a wedgie, because I think he needs it. And I think if he had gotten that years ago, it might have saved us all a lot of trouble.
I don't know. It's bullies is the bullying is something complicated. Like, I was bullied when I was a kid, even though
I was too, yeah. But I think I'm better.
I was the tallest kid in the school always, right? But that doesn't matter. And now you see all these kids that are so angry, and obviously in the United States, when I was in the 1990s, when Columbine happened, it was a world event. All the nations in the world were talking about that. Like, oh my God, school shooting in the United States, the richest nation in the world. How could that happen? Now you guys have a shooting like every third day or whatever, and nobody
it's
cares. Nobody keeps
ridiculous.
count. And I don't know how to channel that, how to overcome that, because obviously, and also, it's not that in Mexico it's more civilized, right? We all have our problems too. I mean, Jesus, with cartels and all that, it's probably even worse here. But I don't know where I'm going with this is. There has to be a way for people. Yeah, maybe you have to get people who are very over themselves, like to maybe like to knock the bullshit out of them, maybe with a slap in their heads, or maybe with another method. But yeah, I mean, I guess maybe the main problem is that in all these movements, even the UFO movement, the loudest people are not necessarily the ones you should be listening to. Like Blue Elizondo. Sure. Who is this guy? Like we've been listening to since 2017. What is he been saying? What is he been saying?
Have you read his book?
Oh my God, no! I have it on Dropbox. Someone shared it with me, so I could take a look at it. And I know that at some point I will have to do it, just to keep me informed.
Right.
But it's like it feels like a chore, because number one, I doubt he's a good writer. I mean, well, I guess. And on the other hand, I'm sure that none of the things he will say, even the big revelations, will amount to anything.
Yeah.
Like, what is he saying? Like, oh yes, the United States has flying saucers and aliens kept somewhere. Okay.
Yeah.
And
right.
What are we gonna do?
Well, I think the revelation that he was a torture czar was...
Yeah, well, that didn't surprise me that much. I mean, the guy is the son of a man who was involved in the Bay of Pigs, landing.
Right. Yeah.
And there's something to be said about Latin American parenthood. the way they raise their sons. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Stories I can tell. So there's that. Right? Plus, also, I think that his mother was on Playboy.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he said something about that on the Rogan show.
Oh, all right.
Yeah,
see, like, I rely on you and a few others to check this stuff out for me, because I cannot be bothered. I really cannot be bothered with the modern disclosure movement and most of the people involved with it. It's just when it's not stupid, it's boring. And when it's not really that stupid or boring, it's weirdly right-wing leaning. So
yeah, that's the thing. It is surprisingly boring, even though this stuff's supposed to be exciting, right? I mean, like,
yeah.
I didn't read about UFOs to learn about the way that people pass laws, and now I need to know about amendments and legislations and the machinations of Congress and hearings and NDAs and all that stuff. Was like, I didn't want to become a lawyer.
Yeah.
To know about UFOs, man. I want to learn about, and then obviously, now that I don't believe in the ETH, that I don't think astronomy has really a lot of things to say about UFOs. Probably James McDonald, if he will still be alive, probably will have more to say about the phenomenon than NASA, right?
Right. And I mean, that's part of the problem, is that we have historically relied on astronomers, astrophysicists.
Mhm.
Um, One thing that always drove me nuts on UFO Twitter was people would go after Neil deGrasse Tyson, and they
Right.
always thought he was like the white whale, that if they
Mhm.
could get him to agree that maybe aliens were real or that UFOs are coming from outer space, and he's never going to, and it's like you're barking up the wrong tree. Like, why are we asking somebody who's uh well, first of all, he's a popular scientist at this point. You know,
Yeah.
his job is to popularize science, not he's not doing the science as much as
Right.
he's become a figurehead for it. But also, that's not even really the science. That's not exclusively the science we should be looking at,
Sure.
because
It's
you're
like
already presupposing that it's outer space that we need to look at. You know?
right. It's like asking the Pope for the benefits of yoga. First of all, it comes from a totally different religious tradition. Second of all, I mean, the guy is 80 something. He's never going to do yoga. He never did.
Yeah.
So why are you asking him? About that?
Right.
It's like.
Yeah, and he's not interested.
And he's not interested exactly. And the most important thing is he's not interested, and they'll never change their position. I remember, back in 2018, there was this little time when all these major skeptics were like, they were in pause because of
Right.
all the revelations about the Tic Tac and David Fravor and all these people that the government was taking seriously. They said, okay, these guys, they saw something, right? And
Yeah.
and and their instrument recorded something. And when they were asking the skeptics, Neil deGrasse Tyson was like, well, I never said that there weren't things out there that we couldn't understand, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, rightly so, they counter argued and said, but that doesn't mean they come from outer space. Yes, of course. Every time someone asks someone in the Pentagon or in the White House press room, hey, can you say something about aliens? They always say the same. We have no evidence of extraterrestrial visitations. It's like, hey, that's not what I asked. You
Yeah.
are you are
Exactly.
making the assumption. You are making the assumption of UFOs equals ETs, and I feel that is almost like a cope. Like, hey,
Hmm.
okay, what about UFOs as, I don't know, time travelers? Oh yeah, we do have a time traveling machine stored in
Oh
Nevada.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a horse of a different color. The time machine is over here.
Exactly.
Trump's uncle gave it to us.
Ah, right. Yeah. There's that whole conspiracy.
Right. Yeah.
And there's even, I don't know if you read that thing about there's this science fiction book that was written almost like 100 years ago.
Yeah, the
Uh,
Baron Trump thing.
the Baron Trump thing, and it's like,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
the hell? It's almost like keep coming back to the things that Jeffrey Kripal wrote about in Mutants and Mystics. The idea that in the end, yeah, you have to realize this is kind of almost like a fiction written
Hmm.
by someone or something. And the moment that you manage to realize, oh, wait a minute, I'm a character in this fiction, you begin to have the means to change the plot, at least in what you are concerned. So you
Hmm.
could try to give yourself a happier ending, right?
Yeah. Well, I think in essence that's what magic is. Um,
Right.
you know, and magicians are able to do that, and as a corollary to that, artists are able to do that because magic is an art, and art is magical.
Art
I,
is magical. Yeah, totally in
as an
agreement.
act of will. So,
Mhm.
uh, I do truly believe that. Like, I think when you talk about free will, I think those who exercise their own free will are the magicians and are able to plow that path
Mhm.
through what would otherwise be a laid out track for them. You know.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, So I mean, that makes a nice little segue here to art,
Mhm.
because
True.
a lot of times in the past few years, and you did a presentation for it as well at the Anomicon
Mm.
last year. I'm sure you've talked this to death, but with the ufology tarot, um, like your artwork for it is great. I mean, I can't imagine anyone listening to this right now didn't at least come across some of the images from it. But
Mm.
it, the artwork is wonderful.
Thank you.
After creating those images, have you developed any relationship with the tarot? Has it become a practice for you at all, or did you kind of yeah, I'm just kind of curious if you started using it maybe, or if you developed like kind of a meditation on them.
This is a good
Because
question. Uh,
yeah,
Not really.
yeah,
Like, no, I never tried to create a practice out of them. Also because, like, you probably know, artists are our worst critics.
yeah,
So it would feel kind of weird to try to say, oh, I'm going to start a tarot practice using my
yeah,
own tarot, right? Although that is one of the things that magic practitioners do, right? If they're going to use a wand, they have to make them themselves. They have to go into the woods, they have to find the materials, the stick or whatever that attracts to them, and then they have to go and craft them themselves.
hmm,
That's certainly the case. But no, I uh, kind of like also out of necessity try to like put the project aside and not trying to look at it too much. Also because uh, from a certain point of view, the project is well, for many reasons and from many points of view, it is incomplete. It is
right,
still a work in progress, right?
hmm,
And if because I'm saying this because for people who don't know, we only managed to complete the major arcana part of the tarot deck. So there's the minor arcana, all those cards that are still missing, and it's more than likely that they will never be completed.
right,
so
yeah, yeah.
so from that point of view,
Well, it's
the
just
tarot is
56 more cards for you to do. That's not that hard, right? Just 56.
yeah, so just 56. So yeah, I don't know, maybe 20 more years of my life, right?
Yeah.
And the problem is that I'm a freelance artist, so that means that I don't have free time to devote to this project, right? Whatever time I have to devote it to making the work that actually helps me pay the bills.
Right.
So if the project never completes itself, it will be kind of like I don't know what to say if a failure, but definitely will be something different to what it could have been
Hmm.
under different circumstances. You know, if I had managed to find someone else uh, interested in it enough to not only I don't know license it and commercialize it for us, because that's something that we never managed to do ourselves properly. Uh,
Hmm.
that's the problem with people interested in this field. We're great thinkers, we're great theorists, researchers, or in my case, maybe artists, or well, you know, try to be good
Hmm.
artists. But we're all lousy businessmen.
Yeah,
We're terrible in trying to actually make a buck out of the things that we
I am
do.
so guilty of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I am hopeful that my imaginary sponsors are going to pay off, but
Right. Well, you have to keep thinking on them hard enough in order to manifest them, right?
yeah, the imaginary money only goes so far, but
True, true. Well, all money is imaginary, right? The thing is that the quote unquote real money is agreed upon or imagined by a larger enough amount of people
yeah,
so
exactly,
it can
right.
be
So,
actually used.
yeah, yep. You can be like Emperor Norton and print my own money, and then just have people honor it, you know. So-
Well, that's the thing that always fascinated me with this Bitcoin stuff that started like 10 years ago. It was
yeah,
like, wait a minute, this is imaginary computer money, you know?
right.
How come
Yeah,
people actually think this is worth something, just because some computer took like, I don't know, 8 hours in order to complete some really, really long math problem.
yeah. It's absurd. And then using it to buy an image, online,
Yeah,
what was that called?
sad NFTs.
The NFTs, yeah. NFTs just never made any sense to me at all.
Non-fungible tokens. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was something so ludicrous. But then again, there are some things that are equally absurd and they take a hold of the world. So UFOs being definitely one of them, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So who knows? I mean, getting back to the tarot stuff. There was this time when I was invited to Mike Clelland's show.
Hmm.
We were talking about that because he was very interested in the project. He is an artist himself, and as I said to him, and I've said elsewhere, I'll say it again here. He was a major inspiration for me back when I decided to choose this career, like almost like an emergent thing, because I started doing other stuff earlier in my life. I was doing interior design stuff, so I was working more with architects instead of tarot artists. So,
Right,
and
right.
then out of necessity, and started to do this other stuff, kind of inspired by Mike when he was sharing his artwork along with his anecdotes and his experiences on his hidden experience blog. But so
And
back when he,
he also did the art for Mac Tony's book that we had mentioned earlier, the Crypto
oh yes,
Terrestrials book. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
The
yeah, yeah,
illustrations in that are great too. Yeah,
sure. And,
yeah.
and that was one of the reasons why I decided to say yes to Greg Bishop when he asked me to do similar illustrations for his book It Defies Language, which was
Mhm.
my first foray into commercial illustration and also into book cover design. Uh, so I was telling all that to Mike, and then by the time we were ready to wrap things up, uh, and also it was interesting because Mike chose to have that interview on his birthday, August. I want to say August 22nd. So almost like as a gift for him, I grabbed one of my tarot decks that I have. I mean, each member of the project got 5 decks, so I still have like 3 of them or 2 of them. So I grabbed one of those brand new ones and I started to like shuffle the cards, and I asked Mike, okay, Mike, ask something, let's play with the
Yeah.
cards and ask something. And I don't even remember what he asked. But what I asked is that I wanted to ask the universe or whatever, how come I've never managed to have the like Spielberg level UFO experience that I've always
Right.
about. I was born in 1973, so when I was a child, when I first saw E.T. the Extraterrestrial, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Cocoon, that was my jam, right? So I've always wanted to have like the really big mothership covering the whole sky with all these beams of light projecting into the ground. I wanted to have that, so I asked the cards, how come I've never had that? And the card that I drew was the Fool, which I felt was part of that humor that sometimes the phenomenon, if I was interacting with the phenomenon, displays.
That's funny. And it's Whitley Strieber on the Fool card, right?
Right, and he asked to be in that card, and I still feel that's one of the best cards in the deck. Like some of the cards are weaker in the result than others, but I feel that was really good in the execution, in the composition. Everything in that card is almost exactly as I wanted them to be, and as people may know, there's a lot of hidden Easter eggs in those cards, especially in that one. There's even a Easter egg that was unintentionally hidden back when I actually ended up putting the illustration in the layout and stuff. So there was something that I had put in the card that I wanted people to see, but then it got hidden. I said, well, you know what? It is what it is. It's that way for a reason. You can only see it if you check out the coffee table book that we printed as a part of the campaign. When you see the illustration in full length without the template of the tarot cards, you can see a little thing that I put there in the sky, in the night sky, that is over Whitley, that is important to his story as experiencer, let's say, and the way that he conducted himself, the way that he has conducted his, let's say, his spiritual search.
Yeah.
I'm not saying what it is, that's part of the game.
Well, we'll all just have to imagine. Well, I don't know. Yes, I have the deck. Okay. I didn't get the book though. I really like the Lovers card. Betty and Barney Hill. That one came out really nice, and you put the dog in there too.
I put the dog. I actually made a mistake in the color of the dog because I put the name Dulce, but I put it in Spanish, like the way that people would spell it in Spanish, Delsy, instead of Delsey. And Greg Bishop pointed it out to me, and I say, but then it was like in the middle of the process, I hadn't figured it out. It was like, I fucking changed it. Sorry, Dulcie. And also, it's interesting. I don't know. I always wonder what the hell happened with that dog afterwards. People never talk about that. Did the dog develop, like, I don't know, cancer or something as a result of the experience?
It is interesting because there are dogs attached to a lot of UFO stories that usually doesn't end well for them. Wasn't there a dog in the Flatwoods monster encounter that was killed during the initial event? And
I think the dog died a few days afterward.
Right, it got really sick and then
got really sick. Yeah.
Then there's the kind of tangential one to the Mothman, the guy that was watching TV and his dog went nuts and went running out and didn't come back,
Mhm.
and they think the Mothman killed him.
Mhm.
Um,
And getting back to the full card, I was really proud of putting the Whitley's cats like accompanying him instead of the dog that is in the traditional tarot deck, the Rider Smith
mhm.
common deck. I wanted to put the cats because as I read Communion and also Transformation, it is plain that the cats were very important to Whitley and Whitley's family. Like there is even an episode in Transformation that I always remembered how like Whitley is getting abducted, right? But it is a conscious abduction. You know, he's wide awake when he's like taken by the entity that is in the cover of Communion, like the entity that he refers as as a female entity, but he portrays her as, you know, very old, very wise, but also like full of almost like scorn towards him.
Yeah.
And at one point, he is almost like right outside the apartment, and he kind of like sees one of the cats. Like the cat is totally in panic, like cowering on the couch, and he kind of like grabs the cat, and he takes the cat to wherever it is that the alien took him. And I remember in the book, like he's describing how he's surrounded by all these like entities. One of them is like almost like one of these Nordic type aliens. The other one is almost like the gray, but it is thinner and taller. And strangely enough, he was dressed almost like an American of the 1940s. To complete with a checkered flannel shirt, which is very interesting because the checkered shirts is part of the Fortean lore, as you well aware of. And I remember that entity who seemed to be like the boss, he complained to Whitley, "Why did you bring the cat?"
Yeah.
What are you doing with a cat? And at first, Whitley is like saying, "Well, I brought the cat as almost like a proof of reality, right? You know, to test if this is a real event or if it's just imaginary." And all the entities were like looking like him, like, "What the hell are you saying?" And then he describes how they were like probing his mind until he said the most truthful thing he was thinking about at the moment. Like, say, "I brought the cat because the cats are part of our family and they deserve to be involved in whatever it is that we are living," right?
Yeah.
And then they say, "Well, okay, but we need to like put him to sleep." It's like, "No, this is my son's cat. What am I going to say to him in the morning?" Like, no,
Right.
not like that. Just like momentarily. And they press some like triangular metal thing on the cat's leg, and the cat was like poop, almost like death.
Yeah.
And the next morning, the cat was like sore and groggy, almost like he was being anesthetized or something, and he was very like cranky, probably because it was a terrible ordeal for him. The idea of Whitley like grabbing his cat before he gets abducted was so funny and so absurd, and therefore so believable from my point of
Yeah.
view. That's why I needed to honor that episode in that particular card.
Oh, it's pretty great. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't aware of that because I don't think I've read that book, but yeah, that's that is pretty wild. Like, got to bring the cat with me, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, we have been talking for a while,
Right.
but it has flown by because this has been this we've kind of gone all over the place and had a lot of fun UFO chat, and It's kind of funny because it's taken this long for me to do an episode that involves this much UFOs. I think this is the first episode that we're actually kind of spending that much time talking about it. But I was very glad to have you on. At the risk of embarrassing you, years ago when I was first trying to discover who's active nowadays and doing this stuff, I discovered your voice on a couple different podcasts, and through that found your writings on the Grail and elsewhere, and it kind of inspired me to get more involved and write my own things and get on social media and try to share my thoughts on all the stuff I've loved for years and years. So, in much the way that Mike Cleland was an influence on you, you've been an influence on me for a long time. So it's great to have a face-to-face over the computer chat with you.
Thank you, and maybe someday, because you never know. That's one of the few things this field can get you if you believe in that strongly enough, like you're trying to believe in your imaginary sponsors. I imagined once actually interacting with the same people that I was listening to and interacting to only through the computer online when I was in Mexico in 2012, 2013. And what do you know, I actually managed to meet and greet some of them, in real life, which is one of the joys of my life. So, knocking on wood, maybe one day we'll be able to shake hands in meat space one day, share a beer or two or five and keep talking about UFOs, magic art, and all this weird shit we are obsessed with.
Well, yeah, I mean, here's hoping. I have met way more people than I ever expected to, and some of whom were great influences on me. So I am hopeful that we can do that someday. Hopefully the world doesn't completely fall apart. If the center holds,
right,
we will have that here. But where can people find you and things you're up to currently these days? I know you're still writing for the Grail and doing interviews for the Grail, right, on YouTube?
Right, yeah, we have a YouTube channel in which we're trying to put interviews. The last we put was with Ian Mackenzie Blake, who is a really interesting character. He's the webmaster of the website for the Tool band, and people who are fans of progressive rock, they know who Tool is, one of the biggest bands in the world. And this guy, he's very interested in magic. He's a fan. Well, I don't know if he's a fan, but he's very knowledgeable of Aleister Crowley and all that jazz.
Yeah.
And in that interview, he mentioned the anecdote of the time he and the drummer of the Tool band were arrested by the Camo dudes in Nevada. The guys who are guarding Area 51.
Oh yeah.
Really, really interesting. So we're trying to put those types of interviews, and also, I'm trying to write for the Daily Grail, that has been my home, my online home for, 17 years, something like that.
It's been a while.
It's a lifetime, and obviously I'm not as productive and as prolific as I used to be. There's, how it is that there's a time when you really have a lot of things to say about this stuff, and then you realize, okay, I guess I have nothing newer or more original to say at the moment, and you're just reacting to stuff like, I don't know, oh my god, David Grush is going to have some kind of lawsuit. Okay, I guess I have to write about that at some point, or maybe not, because who cares, right? So occasionally, yes, I keep writing for the Daily Grail, and aside from me, Greg is an absolute fantastic writer. He just published this really interesting 5,000 word essay about all these people who are behind the 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 U.S. election. The people who are supporting Trump. All these big
Yeah, the
Silicon Valley
technocratic stuff.
technocratic stuff. And what they intend to create. If they manage to be successful, which is not good at all. So there's that, and also I have my own small little private website, absurdbydesign.com, and yes, that was very deliberate. The name, the title was something that spoke to me. It's probably has ruined me financially, because every time probably some designer or some editor sees the name and says, what the hell is this guy's about?
Right.
But I don't care. I mean, I'm sure that people who are fans of Jacques Vallée will get it. And
Right.
that's the place where I put my collection of images, illustrations, commissions, book covers that I've managed to put, and also occasionally other of my ramblings, that are not published on the Daily Grail. And also, as you said, I'm lucky enough to be friends with people who invite me to their podcasts semi-regularly, like Where Did the Road Go, which is an absolute wonderful podcast. The Soraya has some of the most intelligent people in this field, in my opinion. And I'm not saying that because they are my friends. Well, they are my friends because they are.
Yeah.
I deliberately chose to be friends with intelligent people because I try to learn from them. So yeah, people should check wheredidtheroadgo.com. There's a lot of really good content there, and the occasional roundtable where I'm included, and like this conversation, we talk all over the place. That's the way that I like to talk about these things, and I'm sure that tomorrow I will have absolutely no recollection of what I said in this recording, because that's the thing, right? That's you get into the flow and just let the thing drive, and you are like almost like on the back seat, and
yeah, that's how it ought to be. Yeah.
exactly.
So, well, it was great talking to you, and I'll have to have you back sometime. And
Sure,
maybe
I
we'll have
would
a
love to.
table on here. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Thanks so much, RPJ.
Gracias.